we are going to hear from Gail Snider. Now, Gail is actually on a beach in Hawaii right now. She promised to watch us through live stream. So just bear with me and I will pull up her video because I snagged her in for a video before she left.
My name is Gail Snider and I teach right now in the Masters of Educational Leadership and Management program. I teach the Supervision and Curriculum, Supervision and Evaluation course, EDLM 580 online. And I also team teach the course on Communications for Administrators, EDLM 550. So I've been teaching in this program now for the past 3 years. I guess with respect to my professional background, I have an undergraduate degree in geography from the University of Guelph, which is where I started off. And then I moved on to the Faculty of Education at U of T. And received a Bachelor of Education there. And after that moved into a position as a geography, phys ed, jack of all trades teacher up in York Region when it was starting to boom, and taught for 5 years in one school, and then moved into the position of a department head of geography at another school. So as a department head, of course, I had a small team of teachers that I worked with and supported. After that, I moved into administration as a vice principal of an elementary school, and then a principal of a secondary school in York Region. I also spent time during those years as the standardized tests and assessments moved into the province, working for the Educational Quality and Accountability Office down at the ministry, arm's length of the ministry, and spent a lot of time with data interpretation and analysis, and gained some interest and experience in how to actually use that data to improve student learning. I spent some time at Boise taking some courses in my Masters of Education program. After retiring, I moved out here, and during that time, just prior to my actual retirement in 2007, I completed my Masters of Arts in Leadership and Training here at Royal Roads. So that's kind of my background in terms of my educational experience wound in there with my professional experience. The first thing that came to mind for me when I read that question was empathy. The experiences that I've had as a teacher, as a vice principal, as a principal, working with people in poverty, and also as a parent, I believe allows me to bring to the courses and the online environment with folks the reality that I understand what they're dealing with and what they're going through. So if they're an administrator or a person who's trying to become an administrator and they're struggling with something, for example, as recently as the topic on supervision and evaluation in our program, how can they make evaluation and supervision more teacher-friendly, I'm able to not so much lurk, but observe and pay attention to the discussion, and at times interject my own experiences without being, back when I was in this is what we did. But provide them with an understanding that the person who's reading their papers and the person that's on the other end of the computer has got an experience background that allows them to appreciate what challenges and struggles they may have with their actual position or with the learning. And that in turn has allowed me to work with the groups of students in all various cohorts, I believe. I hope they're seeing it that way as well, to help them with taking that information in the course and appreciating how it does apply in the real world, and that it's not just a theoretical piece of literature that they're reading, but there are very good reasons for having that depth of knowledge to utilize in their toolbox when they're going to try and learn how to incorporate something like professional learning communities into their school. They've got the research from the course. They've got someone who's saying, yeah, this does work. Here's some examples, and also the support to have the confidence to experiment, because I think it's important for the folks that are taking these courses to realize that when you go into a position, that your first shot at trying to introduce a new concept or change is not necessarily going to be the most successful. The article that I asked the class to read about evaluating teachers based on standardized test results, of course, which is a hot topic. And there was a lot of, some people felt they should, some people felt they shouldn't. There was reviews of the literature, and one student in particular who was using the standardized data had asked me to explain how I was able to incorporate standardized data into improving student practices. So I gave them my experience of working with teachers in collaboration to use the standardized data along with other information that they had, formative assessments, report cards, and really look at the data to see what it was telling them about the students' learning, and not just use it as a source of information for ranking that child, but to develop a better way to perhaps work with those children. A lot of times the data was affirming of the report cards. A lot of times if there was anomalies, then we'd work at studying those. That in turn allowed me to, as a principal and in conveying this information with the cohort, look at the skill set that my teachers needed to interpret the data and work with them on their own professional development. And then ultimately, their classroom practices improved, and when I was doing a supervision or evaluation with that classroom teacher, all of that experience was translated into actions in the classroom and student learning, which made it a good experience and effective way to evaluate a teacher. So professional connections, in my case, I'm reflecting back on my school board in Ontario. And one of the things that I did with this particular course that I'm teaching now, supervision and evaluation, the first activity is an icebreaker on explain or share your most recent supervision and evaluation experience. Off the charts in terms of people wanting to participate. And I felt what I needed to understand was what was being shared with me. Is that pretty much the norm still today? So I was back in Ontario for a visit, and I met up with some of my former colleagues that are still within the system that are principals, and also spoke with them to ask to get the director's feedback, who actually was my thesis supervisor when I did my project here at Royal Roads, to see what was in the offing for supervision evaluation in that system. And by getting their information, it reinforced for me what I was hearing from the students in the cohort, but it also provided me with immediate updated information and feedback from a very big school system in Ontario that I could then compare to experiences in BC and Alberta, which is where most of the cohort appear to be from in this particular course. So I drew on those experiences in order to, and connections in order to bring fresh information to the course from in a Canadian context as well, as opposed to many of the readings that tend to come out of the States, because they professionally publish more than we do. And in that way, the students were excited to know that the examples that they were giving had some reinforcement from a Canadian system that was quite progressive, and in that way, that's how I used that professional connection.